long time now, I've been fascinated by the clown character. I grew up watching Killer Clowns from Outer Space on repeat. One of my all-time favorite comic book villains is the Joker, and Ronald never scared me. I loved his nuggets. For some reason, colorful, oddly dressed men scratch my brain in ways I simply can't explain. So this last September, a certain movie came out that just happened to be right up my alley.
If you're gonna put that in your mouth, you gotta pay for it.
Terrifier 3, released in theaters, and I had never wanted to see a movie more in my life. I mean, come on, in the ads it shows people leaving early and throwing up. I even heard that in this one he murders a little boy. This is gonna be awesome. You could absolutely bet I bought tickets first thing I could to see this thing. I could probably write a whole separate video based off of my thoughts on the movie, but of those thoughts I had, one stuck out to me amongst the monstrous displays of torturous gore. How the hell did clowns get here? Well, the concept of a fool is an old one that dates back potentially since our beginning, but earliest records of humans clowning around dates back to roughly 2400 BC, during the 5th dynasty of Egypt. During this time period, clowns played a much different and arguably larger role in society because clowns were also typically priests. No wonder clowns came to be associated with children. Clowns have also played a role during native tribe ceremonies. From what I have found, this is the earliest record of people using some kind of body paint for the act of clowning. These are what's known as Pueblo clowns. Around 300 BC, the concept of jesters pops up. Traditionally, jesters were up to two things around this time. They were either A, traveling performers going to fairs and town markets, or B, a court jester, in which case they would live in a monarch's household. In exchange, they provide entertainment and service. So, how'd they entertain? Well, they juggled, did magic tricks, told jokes. Their whole thing was leaning into the humor aspect of it. Jesters really laid the foundation of our modern idea of clowns, as over time that religious aspect faded in the background and the humor got more of an emphasis. Now, I've been throwing around the word clown a lot, and I want to clarify that before 1560, that term didn't even exist. What we imagine when we think clown, you know, baggy, colorful clothes, bright hair, makeup, red nose, is an amalgamation of all these bits and pieces of old archetypes and old plays that commonly made fun of poor people. The origins of the term are a little unknown, but was commonly used at the time to describe a rustic peasant. Shakespeare often used the word clown to describe his fool characters in plays. And we all know he was kinda that guy back in the day, so in 17th century England, the character type of the clown blew up. For a good while, clowns were basically slightly different variations of each other, usually with the same goal in mind, that being to make fun of the less fortunate. This was the case until our boy Joseph came around. You see, a man in the 1800s named Joseph Grimaldi came around to change the clown game. This dude was the clown at the time. They even gained the nickname Joey for a little bit because of this fella. He's so notable because he gave us what is essentially our first modern iteration of the clown by popularizing the white face makeup look. While looking him up, I found that in his last years, Grimaldi lived in relative obscurity and became a depressed, impoverished alcoholic. He outlived both his wife and his actor son, Joseph Samuel, dying at home in Islington in 1837, aged 58. How ironically sad for a clown. Anyway, around this time, circuses started blowing up. People just couldn't get enough of mocking fake poor people. So someone was like, hey, what if we make real poor people do tricks for us? And then someone else was like, hey, that's a good idea. Let's make fun of disabled people too. And then they shake hands and kiss, or I don't know. But I don't care about the exploitative nature of the circus, gosh darn it. I want to see the funny men juggle and slip on banana peel. Now look, before I go full circus clown, I want to establish that there are two major types of whiteface makeup in the clown world. There's the type you may imagine first, you know? Big red nose, colorful hair, bold face paint, etc. Then there's the kind that has a little more, shall I say, class, characterized by its simple and clean looks derived from paros and old plays. Then there's the secret third type, Juggalo.
Magnets, how do they work? And I don't want to talk to a scientist. Y'all motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed.
So the circus clown is here! As the years go on and the circus clown becomes a popular attraction for all members of the family, clowns ensured themselves a stay in the public consciousness. So eventually, during the 1960s and 70s, someone began running a show with the titular character being Bozo the Clown. This was a massive hit. Also during this time, McDonald's was starting to use Ronald McDonald as their mascot, which, fun fact, at one time, both Bozo and Ronald were played by the same guy, Willard Scott. Although he wasn't a Ronald you probably remember, he looked like this. Yeah, rough. Man, I love clowns. They're just so nice and silly, and how could anyone be afraid of these guys? Oh. Yeah. So, the 70s were a big decade for clowns. Despite my other examples, the image of clowns were forever about to be stained by the infamy of one Mr. John Wayne Gacy. You know the story already. He dressed up as a clown to chop up boys in his house and he was fat. You can see why this wasn't a good look. As a result, the public began to see a darker side of the clown character. A real twisted, psychopathic side. This more sinister twist on the clown only grew more popular with characters like DC's Joker, Stephen King's It, or any piece of media at the time that dared ask the question, what if it had a clown, but evil? And ever since, that's pretty much been where the modern clown remains. Of course, normal circus-style clowns still exist. They aren't going anywhere. But you must admit that a lot of the time you see a clown anymore, it's in reference to how scary they are. Don't get me wrong, as previously mentioned, I love me some evil clowns, so I take no issue with it being a popular twist. My main issue is that clowns and the art of clowning, because yes, it is an art, has sort of been watered down and packaged as a worn horror trope, when really the Fool has so much more to offer. The Fool reminds us to laugh at life and not take ourselves too seriously. The Fool not only can entertain, but also convey important themes and messages through that medium. So while that idea still undoubtedly lives today, it's more or less on life support because Hollywood has reduced the idea to a cheap scare that one man ruined for everybody. Clowns have been around for hundreds of years, and despite their role and how they are perceived in society changing over time, one thing will remain constant, and that is your mother's fat. I was originally going to add a section about modern clowning, as in what they do in clown colleges, which, if you didn't know, are a real thing. However, I felt lazy and quite honestly, it wasn't that interesting. So instead, I will go over a few important things to know when going into clowning. Before I do though, I want to briefly mention that you can essentially copyright your clown look through a clown egg register. In the 1940s, some British clown organization named Clowns International was like, what would be the most convenient way to keep records of clown makeup looks? And then after some serious discussion, somehow everyone agreed on eggs. And so, the Clown Egg Registry was born. I didn't know where else to put that information, but it's important to me that you all know that this exists as well. Anyway, sit yourself down, cause we're going to clown college. Frameworks are the general outline of a clown's act. This can either be a loose set of instructions, leaving most of the act to the clown's imagination, or it can be a more strict script. Clowns don't necessarily need a framework before performing. However, as one can imagine, having an idea of what you are doing before you do it is kind of nice. Now, these frameworks will typically consist of gags and bits. Bits are simply a collection of gags, and gags are the specific goofs clowns will play on one another or themselves. Now, I hope you're hungry, Buster, because we're coming at you with an entree. An entree is a clowning act lasting 5 to 10 minutes, consisting of various gags and bits. If an act only lasts a couple of minutes, that's what's known as a side dish. Both entrees and side dishes will usually end with a blow-off, which is just the fancy word for a big comedic ending of the show. I already know there are many more terms that I didn't cover, but if you are that serious about learning the genuine clown lingo, I'm sure their acceptance rate is pretty good. So yeah, that is the end of the video. I didn't know like 90% of this stuff until I, started researching and recording and everything. It was really, it was really fun. So yeah, have a good day and smell you later.